Well, welcome everybody to our online program on addiction and recovery from the Sunshine Coast Health Center up here in Powell River, BC. And we've been talking about this research project that we've just completed. It took about a year to collect all the data and analyze it, and came out with some very interesting results. And one of the results it came out with was, and this is a really big one, was that the clients, when they first came in here, so they've just gone through active addiction, now they're at the center, so just come here. And they had what I call this external orientation to the world. In other words, they looked out into the world for cues about how they should be feeling, what they should be doing, what constitutes the good life, things like that, right? And one of the very interesting things about this is that we discovered that the fellows coming in here had very little direction in life. So last time we talked about this lack of self-awareness, and this time, and it ties into it, is this lack of direction in their lives. And this is really quite interesting. Most of the fellows said, in fact, just about all of them said, that they really hadn't even thought about their lives before. Only in, basically just before they came in treatment, is only then would they start reflecting on their lives and if this is the life they wanted. But in active addiction, they didn't really pay attention. They didn't pay attention to the past, usually because it brought up all sorts of good memories. In fact, a few of the fellows said that they deliberately refused to think about the past because it brought up so much guilt over their behaviors. But equally, they didn't pay attention to the future. One fellow said, well, I don't know what's going to happen in the future, so why would I pay any attention to it, right? The future is, after all, unpredictable. Could get run over by a bus tomorrow for all I know. And so this kind of idea, but a lot of them, about as far in the future as they got, would be, geez, well, I got to pay the mortgage off in the next month, things like that, right? Very, very immediate kind of goals that they were after. These long-term goals. What would you like your life to be in 5 years or 10 years? I really didn't enter into their minds. So that's kind of interesting, right? And this is even true with some of the older fellows that we had. That really their time in the center was the first time they even paid attention to what was going on there and thinking about their lives. So, the idea of keeping a journal or anything, didn't even conceive of it. Right? So this lack of direction is really quite interesting, and it seems to be just about everywhere. A lot of times in relationships, really, they didn't spend a lot of time thinking about what the meaning of a relationship was. If they were thinking of having a family, they didn't really think deeply about what it would mean to them to be a father. It was really interesting. And even careers, it was amazing that not one of the participants ever pursued a career based on, well, when I was young, I always wanted to be a forest ranger. And then put methodically into place all the goals that they would need to achieve that. Now, that didn't happen. What they did is, one fellow got a career because he lost a bet. Or it's, my buddy was out there and he told me to come out to Alberta because there are lots of jobs. And, those are career decisions, right? Or I'm going to go to school because, there's nothing else to do and maybe getting a degree or something. But no real thought, right? It was really quite fascinating. No real reflection on what this would mean for them, or whether this was something they had a passion for, things like that. And one of the more interesting things that we discovered was that because they didn't really have any goals and they didn't know themselves very much, well, how do you organize your life? Well, one of the main ways of organizing their lives was to have somebody impose this organization onto them. So, for example, work would be very common. So work would impose this sort of healthy-minded order onto their lives. But, of course, there's the evenings and the weekends when they don't have that structure imposed upon them. And then they were left to their own devices. Or family would very often do it. And for some of the fellows, it's interesting because the organizing thing in their life was drug use. And even for some of the fellows who had jobs, the job was manipulated to sort of support the drug use. Yeah. So these are but the key point here is that it's always the external world that's imposing a structure upon them, including the drug use, rather than it's coming out from within themselves. So that was a very interesting theme that we also discovered. Anyway, we'll be back next time with another episode on our research.